What's up and welcome to the video. Today we're going to be talking about these two phones, the iPhone 15 and the iPhone 15 Plus. And in Apple's keynote, they mentioned that there's a lot of all new things with these phones, but as I was using them, I kept feeling like there was a lot that was actually familiar. But the more I thought about it, I realized that it's most likely going to come down to which phone you're upgrading from. So with that being said, let's get into the details, 15 and 15 Plus. So we wanted to start with something that is a little bit of a controversial head scratcher, and that's that the iPhone 15 and 15 Plus internally are rocking last year's processor that you would find on the 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max, the A16 Bionic. Now, last year, and we alluded to some of these news articles or like rumors, potential reasons as to why it happened. But last year, Apple was working on developing the 3 nanometer chip for the 14 Pro and the 14 Pro Max. They apparently ran into some quality control issues that led to them scrapping it and making some last minute changes that led to the 16 Bionic that we had in last year's models. Now, with those quality control issues and production issues, it ultimately was reported that Apple had only enough stock to have enough chips for the 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max, and because of that, the regular 14 line got the processor from the 13 Pro and Pro Max and regular 13. Because there was a certain point in time, typically 13s and before, that the base model iPhone and the Pro model iPhone shared the same processing chip. And now it's not the case. Now with last year, it seems like there was somewhat of a justifiable reason, but with this year, the same exact thing has occurred. And it's just weird to me because I think back to phones like the iPhone 10 and the iPhone 8. Those two phones were very different. The iPhone 8 was the next step in the iPhone, latest and greatest in its own way. And then you looked at the iPhone 10 that was kind of pointing to like the future of the iPhone, a concept iPhone, if you will, that still executed really, really well. Did things like Face ID, stainless steel build, things like that. And even then, they shared the same internal power. But now as we're looking at 14s and above, base iPhone gets last year's processor, Pro model gets an all-new chip, ultra powerful, all sorts of really cool stuff, right? So it just kind of leaves the 15 in a little bit of a weird spot. Now, is that to say that the A16 Bionic is a bad chip? Absolutely not. On the 14 Pro last year, it was a fantastic performer. So if you take that chip out and you put it into a baseline iPhone that might not be rocking that type of advanced hardware like last year, it's still going to be a fantastic performer. And in some cases, it's even going to be better on your battery life. But here's the thing. You used last year's chip still. So that means whenever it comes to things like R&D, whenever it comes to things like production, it should lead to some cheaper costs for you. And that's really not the only recycled component on this device. Let's take a look at the dynamic island, which is new for folks that would upgrade from a 14 to a 15. But again, it's something taken straight out of the 14 Pro line and an established feature since last year, which should hopefully translate to savings in terms of R&D on Apple's end again. And let's talk about the most debated topic that I've seen all over social media lately, the 60 hertz refresh rate on phones that cost $830 and above. I get it. The biggest rebuttal for all of those gripes is the folks who buy the baseline iPhone, they just don't care. As long as the phone performs well and it works well, they just don't care. But here's the thing. You're reusing a lot of the same stuff from last year's iPhones, and it's really not costing you a whole bunch to put it into this package right here. So I would like to see Apple go one of two ways here. Either offer this package, but reduce the cost in order to make it more competitive with the smartphone market that exists right now, or at the very least, if you're going to keep these prices, add some of these innovative features. If you don't want to add 120 hertz because it's tied to ProMotion and you keep it exclusively to all your Pro models, add 90 hertz but allow the consumer to decide if they're going to spend this much, whether they'd rather have 60 hertz enabled or at least 90 hertz enabled. One of two options. Now, Apple did add some new things for the iPhone 15. Let's start with the color. So I have the pink iPhone 15 here, and I gotta say, it's this is a sharp color. I kind of wish they would have brought the pink to the 15 Pro. I would have rocked the color, absolutely. And Apple has found a way to infuse the back glass on these phones with the color itself, and they've done a really good job of rounding out like the corners and the edges, so the feel in the hand of these phones is also really nice, especially when compared to the 14s and the 13s, which just had a little bit of a sharper feel to them. So feel in the hand is nice, the build and colors look good as well. As far as the display on the front goes, we do have a higher brightness display. Peak max brightness of 2000 nits, which really, that particular feature is going to come in handy if you use your phone often outside in direct sunlight, but still cool to see. And of course, across the entire iPhone 15 lineup, there is now USB-C, but a little bit of a bummer. The USB-C on the iPhone 15 is 2.0, and on the 15 Pro, it's 3.0. And what that means is the 15 Pro will give you faster data transfer speeds and faster charging speeds. If that matters to you, I wish they would have kept it uniform across the lineup, just a little bit of a bummer there. And whenever you turn the phone back around and take a look at the camera systems, we do have a new camera system for the 15, a 48 megapixel wide angle and a 12 megapixel ultra wide angle. And as far as photos and videos, it's going to be exactly what you would expect from an iPhone that costs $830 and above. They're really, really nice. And I gotta give Apple some props here. You do have the option to take photos in 24 megapixels or maximum 48 megapixels as well. And if you want things like ProRAW photos, ProRes videos, you do have to step up to the Pro line, but that right there, that trade-off, I am absolutely okay with. So from a baseline iPhone perspective, the camera is exactly what you'd expect it to be. So here's my dilemma with the iPhone 15. Okay, because I mentioned at the beginning of the review that there are really two scopes, like lenses, to look at this phone through. And when I take a look at it from the perspective of someone who would be upgrading from the iPhone 14 to the 15, there is a lot that's new here, right? And if you're jumping from 13 to 15, let's say you've waited a couple of years, you're definitely going to get a lot of new experiences here. The other lens is, I used the 14 Pro Max for the last year, and I just recently jumped into the 15 Pro Max. And I want more power to be in the hands of Apple's consumers. When I look at a lot of the stuff that they took from the 14 Pro line and added here to the 15, but they're still charging $830 for it, I would much rather Apple either, like I said, keep this price point, but add some more stuff to it with that price point. Or if you're going to keep this package right here, $830 for a 128 gigabyte iPhone 15. After tax, you're $3 shy of 900 bucks. This phone is $930, the 15 Plus. After tax, you're just shy of $1,000. In my opinion, Apple could offer a lot more at these price points, or if they want to keep these packages, I would like to make them cheaper and give some of that cost savings into the hands of the consumer. But let me know what you think in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed watching, consider liking and subscribing if you're new. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace. But my point is that you already had this chip in production, and since you're there's a lot.